There's a weird kind of silence that settles in when your marriage becomes more of a roommate situation. Like that hum from an unplugged fridge. You don't notice it's gone until something smells off. That was us. Suburban home, matching his and hers office setups, 2 dogs, 1 shared espresso machine, and 0 intimacy since the Super Bowl. Now, I'm not one of those paranoid guys who stalk their spouses' every move. I'm a web developer, for crying out loud. I stare at screens all day and talk to CSS like it's a needy ex. But one Tuesday, while logging into our joint credit account, to make sure our Amazon addiction hadn't bankrupted us, I spotted something odd, a PayShifter transaction labeled business services. Except it was addressed to me. My name, my email, my damn billing address. Now I know what you're thinking. Maybe it was a subscription I forgot about. Maybe my brain finally rotted and I signed up for some hustle gurus, double your income in 90 days course after 2 beers, and a LinkedIn ad. But no, this was something else. There was no receipt in my email. No password reset. Just a $329 charge to something called Elevate You Confidence Consulting. Sounded fake. Like a multi-level marketing scheme wrapped in a TED Talk. So I Googled it. Nothing came up. No website, no LinkedIn profile, no Instagram. Nada. Which, ironically, is more suspicious these days than a bad Yelp review. I dug into the PayShifter receipt and saw a tiny business logo, just a silhouette of a person with a crown on their head. Cute. I dragged that little pixelated image into reverse image search out of sheer curiosity. And there it was. The logo popped up on a Reddit thread titled Unethical Side Hustles. What's the worst you've seen? Someone had posted it as an example from a now-deleted website offering confidence restoration for discreet companions. Another user commented it was basically emotional manipulation as a service. One guy even claimed he paid a coach through that site who ended up being his ex. Now, I'm not a tinfoil hat guy, but this wasn't just a rabbit hole. It was a full-blown conspiracy buffet. I started doing what any self-respecting suspicious husband would do. I searched our Wi-Fi history, cracked into her work laptop using our anniversary as the password, not even clever, and found a folder named client_bills_2024. Inside were auto-generated invoices. Most just had first names and generic services listed. Session 3. Emotional Intimacy Barrier, Confidence Repair Coaching, Digital Closure Walkthrough. But one stood out, mine. Only it was for codependent masculinity coaching. I laughed so hard I snorted. That invoice was sent to my name, my PayShifter account, but I never saw a damn thing about it. It was dated 3 weeks ago, while I was out of town, visiting my dying uncle. Yeah, I confronted her. Sort of. She came home late that night, smelling like overpriced lavender and smugness. Said she had a client breakthrough and needed to journal the resonance. I asked her what Elevate You was. Oh, just a little side hustle, she said, not even blinking. Confidence coaching, mostly remote. Ever work with a client named me? I asked, flipping my phone toward her with the invoice pulled up. She froze, just for a second. Then she laughed. Babe, it's an alias. A test account for payment routing. Right? Because nothing says romance like charging your husband $329 to feel emasculated. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just nodded and went to bed. And that was the moment I knew 2 things. 1, she was lying. 2, I was going to have a little fun. Because if she was going to run a fake business on my dime, I figured it was time I made a booking of my own. So there I was, lying in bed next to the woman who charged me for fake therapy like I was a broken Keurig. She snored softly beside me, completely oblivious to the fact that I'd just uncovered her little empire of lies. And I wasn't mad. No, mad is what you get when someone eats your leftovers. This was something colder, sharper, like that click you hear when you chamber around. I stared at the ceiling fan, watching it spin like the excuse she must have used on every poor sap in that invoice folder. Confidence coaching. Please. I build websites for a living. I know a scam when I see one. And this had all the signs. Vague services, fake testimonials, recurring payments just low enough not to raise eyebrows. She wasn't helping people. She was running an emotional escort business in yoga pants. The next morning, I called out sick from work. Not because I was sick, though my marriage was on life support, but because I had a project. A personal one. Step 1. I needed to understand the business. She kept all her work, on an old MacBook Air that lived in our home office. It had a glitter sticker on the cover that said Boss Mode, which suddenly felt a lot more sinister. She always logged out, but again, the password was our wedding anniversary, 052417. I swear, cheaters are creative until it comes to passwords. I found her client CRM almost immediately. Some knockoff Airtable lookalike. She had over 40 active clients, each with notes like, Tyler, client number 9, prefers evening sessions. Thinks I'm a licensed therapist. Keep reinforcing that he's better than his ex-wife. Eric, client number 21, very needy. Loves being told he's in control. Sends $50 tips when I compliment his decision-making. Jason, client number 35, married. Wants to talk through feelings of betrayal. Pretty sure I'm the other woman, and he doesn't know yet. And then there was me. Client number 44, Alan. Alias. Used for dummy invoices. He hasn't caught on. LOL. LOL. I read that line 10 times. It was like finding your name carved on a bathroom stall next to a drawing of a clown. Alias? No, sweetheart. I was the only one who knew your iCloud password, and now your dirty little invoice empire was sitting neatly on my flash drive. Step 2. Expose the scam. But I didn't want to just confront her. That's what amateurs do. No, I wanted her to feel it. To panic. To spiral. So I made a burner identity. Created a Gmail with a generic name, Brad Counseling 2024, and messaged her business line pretending to be a new client. I wrote, Hi, I was referred by a friend. Struggling with confidence, heartbreak, and trust issues. Could really use your services. When can we meet? She responded in 14 minutes. Impressive. That was faster than the time it took her to say, I love you, back in 2017. Hi, Brad. I'd be happy to help. I offer first-time sessions virtually or in person. My home office is very discreet. Let me know what works for you, Dizzy Sparkles. I want it in person. Not because I wanted to look her in the eye. That would come later. But because I needed to see her setup. This home office of hers had always been off limits during the day. She claimed it was a sacred space for emotional work. I assumed it was just where she watched true crime and ate snacks. But now, I was guessing it was also the stage where she performed her services. She offered me a Tuesday slot at 1:30 p.m. I confirmed. Next came step 3, reconnaissance. That night, while she was taking her bubble bath, something she did religiously after hard sessions, I snooped again. This time, I looked through her browser history. Tons of invoice generators, scheduling software, even AI chat tools labeled Client Simulation Assistant. She wasn't just manipulating people. She was using bots to fake vulnerability. I found scripts titled, You Deserve Better V1, Gratitude Mirror Feedback, and Toxic Loop Interruption. They sounded like motivational podcast segments, the kind people listen to while jogging, right before buying overpriced smoothies. I started printing. Every document. Every script, every invoice with a first name and timestamp. I made a folder thick enough to snap a rubber band. This wasn't just blackmail, it was my insurance policy. By the time she emerged in her robe, sipping peppermint tea and humming to herself like she hadn't just gaslit 40 men that week, I was already planning step 4. Revenge. I would book the session under my fake name, show up in her sacred space. And then, once we were rolling, I'd reveal who I really was. But I wanted it to hurt. So I called in a favor. My cousin Jackson runs a podcast, Digital Detox, about scams, influencers, and online manipulation. He had an audience of over 200K subscribers and a knack for making things go viral. I pitched the idea. What if we live streamed a confidence coaching session that turned into a public unmasking? He was in. Of course he was. The title practically wrote itself, exposing my wife's fake business. Live therapy session with her husband she scammed. We set it up with hidden cameras. Jackson sent me discreet streaming gear that looked like air purifiers and pens. Everything would feed into a private server until I gave the go-ahead to go public. Now, the final piece, the confrontation. I walked into her office that Tuesday afternoon wearing a hoodie, sunglasses, and a baseball cap. She greeted me like I was a wounded soldier back from war. Brad, I'm so glad you came, she said, gently gesturing to the plush chair across from her. The lights were dim. Essential oils wafted from a corner diffuser. She even had soft ambient music playing, pan flutes, or some other nonsense. She sat down with her journal. Before we begin, Is there anything you want to share with me? I smiled. Yeah, I said, removing my sunglasses. I'm Alan. Remember me? She blinked, tilted her head, and for a second, just a second, the facade cracked. What are you doing here? She whispered. Oh, just booked a session through your little confidence consulting scam. Hope that's okay. Oh, and say hi to Jackson. The live stream went public in less than 3 seconds. Her face went white, and I hadn't even shown her the folder yet. Her face. I wish you could have seen it. It was the kind of face someone makes when the Wi-Fi drops mid-Zoom call. Confused, frozen, and just a little bit guilty. Only this wasn't some buffering glitch. This was the moment her double life booted into safe mode, and I was the system administrator holding the plug. She blinked once, then twice, like maybe blinking enough would reboot reality. Her journal slipped off her lap and landed with a thud, and the soft ambient music suddenly sounded a lot creepier than soothing. You're Alan, she said, like it was the twist ending of a bad soap opera. No, I'm Brad. Remember? The emotionally devastated client you were going to teach trust restoration techniques to. I smiled, pulled out the flash drive from my hoodie pocket, and dropped it on the coffee table between us. That's your entire business. All your scripts, invoices, AI chat logs. Oh, and some selected Reddit quotes. I highlighted the part where you said I hadn't caught on. LOL, right? She just sat there, lips parting slightly, probably trying to summon some profound explanation, but all she could muster was a whisper. Why? I leaned back in the plush therapy chair, which was actually pretty comfortable considering how many desperate men probably wept into its cushions. Why? Because you sent a fake invoice to your husband for codependent masculinity rebalancing, while you were coaching a married man to leave his wife and giving another one verbal domination triggers. I reached down and picked up her journal. It was leather-bound, real fancy. I flipped to the last entry. There it was, scribbled in pink ink. Client number 44, alias needs assertiveness validation. Role-play dominant narrative if requested. She lunged to grab it. I pulled it away and stood up. Nope, I said. This one's mine. Keepsake. Alan, you don't understand. Oh, I understand perfectly. You're a con artist with a Pinterest aesthetic. You pretended to empower men while emotionally grooming them for your digital piggy bank. I just didn't realize I was your final boss. Then, just to twist the knife, I looked right into the hidden camera lens built into the pen on the coffee table and said, for everyone watching, this is what happens when your wife charges you for therapy without your consent. Welcome to Marriage Fraud 101. That's when she stood up, finally moving, finally breaking out of her deer-in-headlights mode. She started towards me, voice rising. You had no right to violate my business like this. This is illegal. I laughed. Illegal? You used burner numbers to pose as a certified counselor. Half these guys think they were in therapy. Did you file taxes on that income, Emily? Because the IRS is going to be real interested in your healing trauma through mirror intimacy program. Her jaw clenched so hard I could hear it over the pan flutes. Who else knows? Depends. How fast is your internet? I pulled out my phone, clicked a button, and boom, Jackson's stream went public. Comments started rolling in. Hearts. Laugh emojis. A guy named Toxic Tyler 42 wrote, wait, is that MY Emily? She snatched her laptop off the desk and slammed it shut, like that would stop the internet. You're broadcasting this. This is defamation. No, this is documentation. Big difference. You know, for someone who preaches authenticity, you sure panic fast when the lights come on. Then she did the thing I expected least. She broke down. But it wasn't real. Oh no, I'd seen this performance before. She turned her tears on like a faucet. No wailing, just soft trembles and a trembling lip. I'm the victim here, look. You don't know how hard it's been, she said, collapsing back into the chair. You've been so distant. I had to do something for myself. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I found something that made me feel in control. Oh yeah, I said. How's that control feeling now? The comments on the live stream were blowing up. People were tagging news outlets. Some guy offered to Venmo me for a full download of her client scripts. She looked at me through damp lashes. Alan, we can fix this. You said you wanted us to be real again. This doesn't have to end us. End us. I tilted my head. I sent a copy of that invoice to my lawyer an hour ago. The prenup clause about fraud? Kicks in once there's documented evidence of intentional deception. You'll lose the house, the joint account. And since you used our shared network for this little operation, good luck explaining the tax trail. She stared at me like I was speaking an alien language. Maybe I was. The language of consequences. I took one last look at her, then turned and walked out. But I wasn't done. Oh no. Because the next day, the real fallout started. My inbox exploded. Emails from clients of hers, furious, embarrassed, ashamed. Some apologized to me. Others begged me not to leak their messages. One guy offered me $5,000 to remove his name from the spreadsheet. I didn't respond. Not yet. The Reddit thread that first led me to her logo? It went viral. Someone reposted the video link with the title, "Confidence Coach Gets Confidence Shattered. Husband Exposes Her Live." It had 500,000 views by lunchtime. And Emily? She went dark. Deleted all her accounts. Her Elevate You website vanished. She even blocked me, which was rich considering I still had full access to her domain's backend. But here's the best part. Remember client number 35? The married guy she didn't realize was married to someone I worked with? Turns out his wife saw the video. Sent it to HR at his company. He got put on leave. And guess who she called afterward? Me. "Hey, Alan," she said over speakerphone. "Want to grab coffee sometime and talk about how our partners screwed us over?" I said sure. Because revenge? It doesn't always end in flames. Sometimes, it ends with espresso, a good lawyer, and a viral video that turns your cheating wife into an internet cautionary tale. There's a peculiar kind of quiet that follows public humiliation. Not the tearful, rage-laced silence you get after a screaming match. I'm talking about that deep, cavernous hush, the kind where your phone doesn't ding, your email's a ghost town, and your mailbox fills with nothing but bank statements and legal letters. That's the quiet Emily was living in now. Me? I was thriving in the noise. After the stream went viral, the fallout didn't just ripple, it detonated. Every group chat in town, every podcast thread, every Reddit sidebar. Her name was everywhere. Fake confidence coach exposed by husband live had a catchy ring to it, and the internet devoured it like it was the last donut in the break room. And Emily, the woman who once curated self-love hashtags like she was auditioning for a TED Talk, had vanished into the digital mist. No more inspirational quotes. No more selfies next to succulents with captions like, "Growth is messy, but so is wine." Gone. But my inbox? That thing needed its own zip code. See, I didn't just leak the video. I offered a little bonus content afterward. A downloadable PDF of redacted invoices and coaching scripts, sanitized for names, but not for shame. Titled it Emotional Manipulation as a Service, a Case Study. Charged $4.99 per download. The first day alone, it made just under $3,200. By day 3, I had enough to buy myself a new espresso machine and a very smug smile. One of the buyers? A journalist from an indie tech mag. She asked for an interview. I gave it to her, on one condition. She had to include Emily's burner accounts and the shady payshifter history. She did. The headline read, "Fake Coach. Real Scam. One man's brilliant expose of his wife's emotional hustle." It wasn't Pulitzer material, but it had a certain poetry to it. But here's where things got interesting. Remember how I said the clients started contacting me? Most begged to be left out of it. A few even threatened legal action. Hilarious, considering they were the ones paying a woman with no credentials to tell them they were spiritually blocked by paternal guilt. But there were others. Curious ones. Angry ones. Lonely ones. One guy, let's call him Jeff, sent me a 20-page manifesto about how Emily saved his marriage by helping him assert masculine polarity. I had no idea what that meant, but he signed off with, "If you hurt her, you hurt us." Us, Jeff? Then came the calls. Blocked numbers. Unknown callers. One guy called at 2 a.m., sobbing, saying he thought he was in love with her and didn't know how to tell his wife. I muted the line and let him cry. Turns out, she hadn't just been charging these men. She'd been feeding them curated emotional fantasies, personalized attention, reinforcement, scripted empathy. She wasn't just scamming them out of money. She was selling counterfeit intimacy, the emotional equivalent of synthetic cocaine. And when I exposed her, I didn't just embarrass her. I pulled the plug on a full-blown addiction ring. Dozens of men, high on the illusion that they mattered to someone who only ever saw them as line items. That's when I realized something. This wasn't over. Emily might have gone dark, but her influence hadn't. These men weren't just victims, they were collateral. And if any of them decided to blow back on me, I needed to be ahead of it. So I did what I do best. I built a site, emotionalsidehustleexposed.com. It launched 2 days after the video dropped. A neatly designed landing page, detailing how the scam worked, screenshots of the scripts, timeline of events, and an FAQ section titled, "Was I a client?" with a secure portal where former clients could submit questions anonymously. It even had a disclaimer. This site exists for education and public interest. If you feel personally attacked, perhaps reconsider your life choices. Within a week, it had over 1.4 million views. I received over 70 anonymous submissions. Some heartfelt, some defensive, a few admitting they'd fallen for her, only to realize she ghosted them once they stopped tipping. One guy sent a message that just said, "I think I loved her. Now I hate myself." I didn't reply, but I archived it. Might need it later. Meanwhile, back in the real world, Emily had officially lawyered up. I got served on a Friday. Hand-delivered envelope from a firm with a name that sounded like a country club. Inside was a cease and desist letter demanding I take down the video, the website, the PDF, and issue a public apology for the psychological and reputational harm I caused. I sent a response the following Monday. It was 3 words long. Best of luck. See, here's the thing about documentation. It's bulletproof. Every screenshot, every invoice, every Reddit post, all timestamped, backed up, and filed with my lawyer. And the kicker? We'd been married under a joint digital assets clause, meaning everything created during our marriage was legally shared unless explicitly copyrighted. Guess who never trademarked her business? I did. After the reveal, I now own the Elevate You name, logo, and domain. That night, I rebranded it. New tagline: fake therapy, real consequences. The homepage featured her own smiling photo, pulled from a now-deleted LinkedIn profile, with a caption beneath that said, "This woman told 44 men how to fix themselves while she built a business on lies. Meet the original emotional entrepreneur." Traffic tripled overnight. And that's when Emily called me. Unblocked. Direct. Middle of the night. Her voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes right before the storm or a lawsuit. "Alan," she said, "we need to talk." "No, Emily," I replied. "You need to apologize. I just need popcorn." "Do you want revenge that badly?" "No," I said. "I want justice. Revenge is just the garnish." Silence. Then she said, "You don't understand what you've done. You've destroyed my name. I can't get clients. I've had 2 job offers pulled. I might lose the house." I waited a beat, then said, "That's wild. You know what else is wild? Charging your husband $329 to gaslight him." "You're a monster," she whispered. "No, Em. I'm a mirror. You just don't like what you see." She hung up, and for the first time in months, I slept like a baby. Because justice doesn't come in grand gestures. It comes in steady, calculated moves. In leaked PDFs, rebranded websites, and court-admissible evidence folders titled Fraud, Exhibit A. And I wasn't finished yet. By the following Tuesday, my inbox had turned into something between a therapy hotline and a confessional booth. Dozens of her former clients, or as I now thought of them, subscribers to the Church of Manipulative Affirmation, had written in again. Some apologizing, some offering hush money, a few even threatening to sue if I didn't remove their emotional history from the site. One guy, Marcus, claimed he was emotionally dependent on Emily's affirmations and now suffered from post-validation withdrawal. I had to reread the email 3 times. Post-validation withdrawal? You couldn't make this stuff up. Actually, wait, she could. She had. I replied with a link to a real therapist and a sarcastic, "Tell them Alan sent you." The messages were weird, sure, but not surprising. Emily's business hadn't just been a scam, it was an ecosystem. An emotional MLM, where she was both mentor and messiah. These weren't just clients, they were her little empire. Now they were drifting in the wake like confused cult members after the Kool-Aid ran out. And speaking of cults, that's when the press caught wind. Apparently, someone had forwarded the video to a popular daytime TV producer. A show that rhymed with the Schmelin Show, if you catch my drift. They reached out with an offer. Come on air, tell your story, raise awareness about emotional scams. Maybe toss in a few buzzwords about healing and self-respect. I politely declined. Because this wasn't about healing. This wasn't about closure. This was about watching Emily's empire collapse one invoice at a time, and doing it with a cold drink in my hand. But even I didn't expect what happened next. It was a Thursday. The weather was annoyingly beautiful. One of those perfect spring days that makes you want to grill something, even if all you have is a freezer pizza. I'd just come back from picking up new patio furniture, bought entirely with proceeds from the viral PDF sales, when I saw a familiar car in the driveway. Emily's. She was leaning against the hood, arms folded, sunglasses on, like she was in the trailer for a courtroom drama. I stepped out of my car slowly. Well, I said. If it isn't the Duchess of Deflection. Alan, she said, pushing off the hood. We need to talk. Face to face. I raised an eyebrow. About what? Your Yelp rating. She didn't laugh. Her jaw tightened. You're destroying me. I shrugged. Yeah, that was kind of the point. I've lost everything, she said, stepping closer. The coaching gigs. The sponsorships. Even the girl who made my aromatherapy candles unfollowed me. Tragic, I said. I'll send flowers. I made mistakes, okay? She said, finally raising her voice. But you're acting like I'm some monster. I helped people. I made them feel heard. I looked her straight in the eye. You took vulnerable men, told them you were healing them, and charged $300 to say things like, you are enough, while using AI to ghostwrite their emotional breakthroughs. They needed it. No, Em. They needed therapy. You gave them performance art. She blinked rapidly. Her voice dropped. I've been offered a settlement to license the video. That caught my attention. Come again. A media firm. They want exclusive rights. Turn the story into a docuseries. Emotional hustler. The rise and fall of a digital coach. I stared at her. You're pitching your own scandal? It's already out there, she said, shrugging. Might as well control the narrative. I snorted. You want me to sell them the footage? I want us to profit from this. Together. There it was. Not an apology. Not regret. Just pivoting, classic Emily. When the business fails, monetize the wreckage. And for a second, one dangerous, devious second, I considered it. But then I said, you know what's funny? What? I already sold the rights. She blinked. What? 2 days ago. Signed with a YouTube doc team. Full licensing, royalties included. You're about to be the main character in an 8-part series titled Therapist for Hire. How a Suburban Wife Fooled 44 Men. Her face twisted, not in anger, but in pure, stunned disbelief. You used my image. That's illegal. Not when it's under marital property and public domain usage, I said. Remember that joint asset clause in our prenup? Anything made with our shared devices, our home network, or during our marriage is technically co-owned. I own the site, the logo, and the footage. All of it. She just stared. So I walked past her, unlocked the front door, and called over my shoulder. Oh, and one more thing. The docuseries? It ends with a twist. She didn't respond. The twist, I said, turning back, is that you're not the main victim. You're the case study. Emily didn't say a word. She got back in her car, slammed the door, and peeled out of the driveway like a fast and furious extra with something to prove. And that was it. No more texts. No more emails. She went completely off-grid. The last digital trace I saw of her was a LinkedIn post from a former coworker, wishing Emily luck on her next journey. Sometimes, the path you take becomes your punishment. Poetic. Meanwhile, the docuseries went into post-production. I sat with the team for the voiceover sessions. We used excerpts from her coaching scripts, mashed up with client audio. The editors added ominous music, some pixelated faces, and of course, my commentary. I watched the rough cut of episode 3. The title? He Paid for Love. She sent a script. It ended with one of her AI auto-responses. You deserve someone who sees your soul. Fade to black. It's been 6 months since the night I live-streamed my wife's emotional Ponzi scheme and turned her suburban confidence coaching empire into the most memed scandal since that dude faked a robbery for TikTok clout. 6 months since I turned our living room into a broadcast booth, fed the internet a viral dish of cold revenge, and watched Emily, my wife, my partner, my accidental case study in digital manipulation, spiral into obscurity, one burner account at a time. 6 months. Long enough for the docuseries to go live on YouTube. All 8 episodes. Glossy, sharp editing, lots of dramatic music. You know, the The kind they play when someone walks away in slow motion from a fire. They definitely started. The show blew up. Millions of views. BuzzFeed did a think piece. Reddit had daily threads. Someone on Twitter made a parody account pretending to be one of her fake clients. Even Etsy sellers got in on the action, hawking emotional entrepreneur mugs and mirror intimacy candles. And me? I got a book deal. Yeah, that's right. Side hustled. How I accidentally took down my wife's coaching empire will be out in spring. Pre-orders already look decent. I've even done 3 podcast interviews, a TEDx talk in Milwaukee, and a Q&A at some liberal arts college where a kid asked me if revenge can be healing when it's publicly commodified. I told him, no, but it's profitable. So here we are. But before you ask, no, I didn't hear from Emily again. Not directly, anyway. She didn't file a lawsuit. Her lawyer probably told her what mine did. Any move she made would only bring more attention to a story that already had its claws in the culture. She'd become a cautionary tale, a case study in branding without ethics, in parasocial monetization, in what happens when your husband knows your iCloud password and has a petty streak as wide as the Mississippi. Still, I kept tabs. I had Google Alerts set up. One day, about 2 months after the series dropped, a new profile popped up on LinkedIn. M. Fields, emotional wellness strategist. The headshot was old, taken back when she still smiled like her chakras were aligned. The job history was empty. The tagline said, helping professionals rediscover personal value through conversation and care. I laughed. Out loud. Alone. I didn't say anything. I didn't post a comment. I just screenshotted it, labeled the file "Some People Never Learn," and moved on with my day. And here's where things get a little complicated. Because for a while, I didn't know what to do with myself. The revenge arc was complete. The story had a beginning, a twist, a reveal, and a finale that ended with her walking off into silence while I cashed royalty checks and answered DMs from podcast hosts asking if I'd ever trust again. The internet loves revenge, but it's not great at what comes after. Truth is, I didn't want closure. I wanted clarity. Not the self-help kind. Not the crap you put in your Instagram bio. Real clarity. About who I was before this mess and who I wanted to be after it. So I did something I hadn't done in years. I turned off my phone. I took a week off from work, packed a bag, and drove out to this little lakeside town my parents used to take me to when I was a kid. Rented a cabin. No Wi-Fi. Just a fireplace, a stack of old mystery novels, and a notepad. I sat on the porch every morning with a cup of black coffee and wrote. Not the book, just thoughts. Here's what I wrote one morning. I didn't marry a monster. I married someone who was good at pretending. And maybe, so was I. Pretending I didn't see the red flags. Pretending our relationship was still alive when it had flatlined long before her side hustle got a logo. Maybe I liked the routine, the rhythm, the illusion. Maybe exposing her was as much about punishing myself for playing along as it was about punishing her for lying. Heavy, right? Don't worry. I balanced it out with some doodles of exploding laptops and stick figures labeled Client Number 21 asking, do I have alpha energy yet? The week passed quietly. No drama. No dopamine hits from likes or shares. Just silence. And for the first time since this whole thing started, that silence didn't feel empty. It felt earned. When I got back home, things looked different. Not physically. Same house, same furniture. But it felt cleaner. Lighter. Like the weight of pretending was finally gone. I changed the locks. Donated everything she left behind to a local shelter. Burned the fake eucalyptus candles she used to light during her sessions. That part felt especially cathartic. Then I called a real therapist. Her name's Dr. Michelle Grafton. She works downtown, no essential oils, no Instagram presence, just a degree and a calendar that runs on honesty instead of pay shifter invoices. We meet every Thursday. It's not about closure, not really. It's about rewiring my compass. About figuring out what's next. Because the truth is, revenge doesn't rebuild you. It just gives you the space to. So now, I'm working on that. The book comes out next year. There's talk of a miniseries deal. A small production company pitched a dark comedy version where they cast Jesse Eisenberg as me. I said no, but only because I think I'm more of a Paul Rudd. And dating? Yeah, that's back on the table. But this time, I'm taking it slow. No shared passwords. No joint LLCs. No one who calls themselves a vibrational empath in the first 5 minutes of conversation. Last weekend, I had coffee with someone I met at one of the book readings. Her name's Erin. She's a graphic designer. Real chill. We talked for hours about fonts, failure, and why people cheat even when they're loved. She didn't try to mirror me or offer unsolicited emotional diagnostics. She just listened. It felt honest. And that's more rare than love these days. So if you're still here, still listening to this voice, wondering what happens after the storm, this happens. The cleanup, the quiet, and maybe, just maybe, the start of something real. The end. Subscribe to the channel